everyone, welcome to my channel Shubha Unfiltered. And today we are diving back into Michael Jackson myths and facts part 2. In my previous video, we broke down 3 massive things people widely believed: that MJ intentionally bleached his skin, that he was just a simple singer with no deep music intelligence, and that he invented the moonwalk. Today we will look at the $1 billion war. We are covering what really happened between Michael Jackson, the Beatles, and the Sony Music, and exploring exactly how Michael Jackson transitioned from the world's greatest entertainer to a brilliant billionaire businessman. With this, he also invited troubles for him. Let me start with myth number 4. Michael Jackson stole the songs from Paul McCartney under the table. To understand how Michael went from the stage to the absolute top of the music business, we have to travel back to 1981. Michael was staying at the home of Beatles legend Paul McCartney while they were collaborating on the massive hit tracks like Say, Say, Say. One evening at the dinner table, Paul brought out a thick leather-bound notebook. It contained a list of all the music publishing rights Paul had been buying up from the other artists. McCartney, who was already an incredibly wealthy, successful artist, casually explained a golden rule of the industry to a young Michael. He told him that owning the publishing rights to song is where the real power is, explicitly advising Michael that there was massive money to be made in buying song catalogs. He looked at Michael and said, "Every time someone plays these songs, I get paid." Michael was a good listener. He listened intently, smiled, and looked straight at the former Beatle owner and said, "Paul, one day I'm going to buy all your songs." Ha ha ha. Paul laughed it off as a joke. But Michael wasn't joking. He had decided right then and there that he was going to start owning catalogs and mastering the publishing business. At that moment, Michael's intention was not to buy Paul's catalog. Flash forward to 1984. The ATV music catalog suddenly went up for sale. This wasn't just any catalog. It contained the publishing rights to 251 classic Beatles songs, including Hey Jude, Yesterday, and Let It Be. Michael's attorney, John Branca, immediately approached Paul McCartney and John Lennon's widow, Yoko Ono, to see if they were going to buy them back. They both declined, thinking that $47.5 million price tag was far too steep. But Michael saw it as a masterpiece. He told his team, "You can't put a price on these songs. They are the best songs ever written." In August 1985, Michael outbid corporate giants and executives, officially purchasing the catalog. Overnight, a 26-year-old black pop star became the owner and publisher of the crown jewels of British rock history. His friendship with Paul McCartney instantly fractured. When Paul later confronted him about buying the catalog, Michael simply replied, "Oh Paul, that's just business." But that single deal instantly changed how corporate America viewed him. He was no longer just a singer who danced on stage. He was a major corporate player who outsmarted the biggest sharks in the industry. The merger and the Sony trap. This brings us directly to myth number 5. His career faded in early 2000 because his music simply wasn't good anymore. For nearly a decade, Michael Jackson earned huge profits from owning the Beatles' music catalog. Then, in 1995, everything changed. Sony Music proposed a deal to merge Michael's ATV music catalog with Sony's publishing business. Together, they formed Sony ATV, creating one of the world's largest music publishing companies. Sony paid Michael $95 million in cash, and in return, they formed a brand new entity, Sony ATV Music Publishing. Michael and Sony now split ownership exactly 50-50. On papers, Michael was richer than ever, but in reality, he had just invited a corporate giant directly into his living room. The core conflict of this 50-50 corporate trap was very simple. If Micheal ever went bankrupt or defaulted on his massive loans, Sony held the first right to buy out his half of his catalog. By 2001, Tommy Mottola was the CEO of Sony Music, and this is where the relationship completely collapsed. Micheal had poured years of work and over $30 million of his own money into his 2001 album. He was also reaching at the end of the contract with Sony. Michael's plan was brilliant. He wanted to deliver his final album, Invisible, fulfill his contract, walk away as completely free agent, and take his enormously valuable 50% share of the Sony ATV catalog with him. Sony realized that if Micheal left, they would lose half of the most valuable music catalog on the earth. And according to Micheal and industry insiders, a quiet corporate sabotage began. Suddenly, Sony completely stopped promoting Invisible. They cancelled the release of singles, pulled the radio budget, and refused to fund international marketing. The album, despite being number one, was effectively starved of oxygen by its own record label. Why would a record company intentionally hurt the sales of their biggest artist? Micheal believed it was a targeted campaign to force him into severe financial distress. If Micheal ran out of money to cover his lavish lifestyles and massive loans, he would be forced to do one thing Sony desperately wanted: sell his remaining 50% of the share of the Beatles catalog back to them at a major discount. But they completely underestimated Michael Jackson. He didn't hide away in Neverland. Instead, in 2002, he did something entirely unpredictable. He took to the streets. Micheal arrived in London and later in New York, standing on top of the double-decker bus, surrounded by thousands of shouting fans. He held up a signboard that read, "Sony kills music and Sony is a monster." Micheal said, "The record companies really do conspire against their artists. They steal, they cheat, especially the black artists. Tommy Mottola is a devil, he's a racist, and he's very, very devilish." The war was completely out in the open. Micheal had shaken the very foundation of the music industry. But right as this multi-billion-dollar corporate battle reached its absolute boiling point, the narrative completely shifted. The corporate headlines suddenly faded, and the most damaging, highly publicized personal allegations in media returned to crush him. Was it just a coincidence that some of the biggest controversies in Michael Jackson's life unfolded during the period of intense business battles? Or was it simply a price of being the most famous entertainer in the world? The answer is still debated, and that's why Michael's story continues to fascinate millions. In part 3, we will look into the tabloid gossips, the humiliation Micheal faced being a star. We are going to look at the court transcripts and the documented facts of the trials that shocked the world. Make sure you subscribe and turn on the notification because you won't want to miss the next chapter. See you in part 3.